welcome to our Sunday service. This week, Valerie has sent out a couple of emails sharing with you about Faith Promise and about this Sunday service. So you probably know a little bit about it. Now there is an insert in the worship folder. And this insert that's in the worship folder has a couple of ways that you can participate with Faith Promise. Now, I know that not everybody is the same. So if for some reason these two different ways don't seem to apply to you, if you have a better way, then please just write it in on the card. And we will be collecting these little papers, these little, actually they're our gifts to God almost. We will be collecting them at the end of the service. I would like to share just a little bit about our speaker before she comes up. She was born in Ohio, but she was raised in Jacksonville since she was 5 years old, so really she's almost a true Floridian. She graduated from Eastern Nazarene College. She's a microbiologist at UF Health in Jacksonville, and she's been there for 40 years. She's an adjunct professor at FSCJ in the medical laboratory program for 19 years. She was elected the North Florida NMI president in 2000, and currently co-presiding with Wes Eddy, it is, at the NMI president for the new North Florida district. So it is my privilege to have Susan Day come forward and share with us.
Before you leave, hold on a second. At District Convention for the new Florida District, we had an Olympic theme and we gave out medals. And I don't know if you guys know, but you have a tremendous NMI president here, and so we want to present her. All right, it's just family here, right? Am I on? Am I on? Yes?
No.
Oh. Well, there we go. Okay. Oh, wow. I am required for sale, aren't I? Okay. It is just family here, so you have to excuse me. I sort of wander around when I lecture, and so I may just walk the whole platform. You never know. So, okay. What we're going to talk about today, before I get into the Faith Promise, there has been some questions about us going on our next work and witness trip, and we are going to go to Dominica. We are in a partnership with Dominica, and it is in the Caribbean, somewhere near St. Martin's, I think. It's a very small island, and we are going to be going there, and it is going to be the end of February through the first part of March of 2015. And so that is our next one. And if you have an interest in having your pastor go, you certainly could participate in the Nails Club and see if he could be the winner. And we also have a Nails Club scholarship for teens. If they want to enter, then that would be fine. And we do have a scholarship to help them go as well. So if that's something you'd be interested in, certainly you may contact me. I'd be glad to give you some information. All right, let's talk about Faith Promise. What is God asking you to do? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. Next slide. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. So let's talk about exactly what is Faith Promise. All right, Faith Promise is a God-inspired, Bible-based plan for giving. It's another method that we have for financing world evangelism. It's also a personal demonstration of faith and trust between you and God. It's a commitment between you and God, and you just commit to give the money as God provides it. Now, this is not money that you already have. This is not money that you think you can manage to squeeze out of the budget. This is an amount that you promise purely on faith, that when the extra money comes in, that you will be faithful to give it to your faith promise pledge. Now, we all know when extra money comes in, there are numerous places for us to be able to put those. Your commitment is just to put it towards your faith promise. It's God's responsibility to send the money to you. It's not anything that you already have. It's a really kind of a liberating aspect. You don't have to worry about the money. That's God's responsibility to send it to you. You just have to be faithful to give it when He sends it. Well, let's talk about what faith promise is not then. It's not a pledge in the true sense of the word. No one is going to come up to you and say, you know, hey, I think you're a little behind on your faith promise. Okay, you can give anonymously. You know, on your card there, the promise card, you really don't even have to sign it because it's between you and God. No one needs to know what God has asked you to do. That's between the two of you. It's also not your tithe. We know that the tithe is the 10%. That already belongs to God. So it's not your tithe. Your faith promise is more like a love gift that you are going to give to God. It's also not a substitute for mission offerings. Now, I hear a lot that we just want money all the time. Yeah, it's true. I'll admit it. We do. Because we have a tremendous amount of needs all around the world. And we'll talk more about that. We have many of those giving opportunities. And even though these can be included in your faith promise, we still receive these offerings. Let me tell you for a couple of basic reasons. There are some people that may be new to the church and have never heard of faith promise and have not begun to participate. Even if you are participating in faith promise, you may still be able to give additionally as God prompts you. And then also, it's good for us to be reminded that these giving opportunities of what missions giving is doing for world evangelism. And so we are constantly reminded throughout the year of all of the needs of our missionaries and the indigenous peoples. Giving to missions will never hurt the local church. Let me repeat that. Giving to missions will never hurt the local church. When we find mission-minded churches, those churches are ones that flourish because they have their eyes outward and not inward. When we start focusing on our little church, our little area, then we lose that global eyesight. And we need that to be able to look and see what God is wanting us to participate in. Now, I've heard many people asking, why should we give so much to global missions when we have so many local needs? And I hear that a lot. And it's true that we do have a lot of local needs. But actually, when you do give to Faith Promise, you are supporting here in the United States because the USA Canada is a mission region. And so we actually are helping support in our local areas. However, in Acts 1:8, it tells us that we will be witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, and Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth. Have you ever realized that 3 out of 4 of those are not local? They're global. Yes, we are witnesses in our Jerusalem, but we are to go out to the rest of the world. And so that is where we also put our main focus. We are very blessed here in the United States. We have many opportunities that other countries do not have. And whatever you may think about this, our government does have many plans to help the needy people that are in the United States. It has been driven home to me, because I've been able to travel to represent you, it has been driven home to me that to whom much is given, much is required. And I have been given much. In the world's view, in many countries, I don't consider myself wealthy, but believe me, we would be extremely wealthy in other countries. And so, to whom much is given, much is required, and I have to be faithful with that. Well, what does Faith Promise include? It can include the World Evangelism Fund, Alabaster Offering, our links, World Mission Broadcast, Missionary Healthcare, and the Jesus Film. It can also include your district obligations, such as your children's project raising money. We're in that partnership with Dominica, and our children are raising money for a car for Dominica to be used on the island for evangelism. It can also be used to help pay your youth project. The youths are collecting money to get money for a praise band and to buy instruments. And so we heard these wonderful people up here this morning. They want to do the same thing in Dominica, and so our youth are going to be collecting for that. It can also include your participation in the Nails Club and the NMI Fair Share budget for the district. Also, local mission needs, such as hosting missionaries, giving them a deputation, offering, all of those things. And I have been so privileged to represent you on 5 different continents. And let me show you, we'll just kind of take a little tour around the world, what your faith promise in action looks like. First off, we're going to go to India. I don't know if you know, but in India, in the World Bank in 2014, reported that 11% of all people in India were below the international poverty line. Anybody know what that is? International poverty line? What the sum is in United States dollars? Any guesses? This is the interactive part. This is what I tell my students. This is the interactive part. I ask, you answer.
Probably something disgustingly small by our standards.
$100. It's actually $1.25 a day. That's the international poverty standard. It's also estimated that 25% of Indians below the poverty line in India, and the poverty line in India is 40 cents a day. So you can see, we would be considered very wealthy. When I was there, you drive past and you have people just sleeping on the streets. I'll show you some pictures, but we had to step over them literally to get in, where we were going. And I asked one of the people there and said, in US dollars, what would you have to be rich here and live behind like the gated communities with the wrought iron gates and stuff? And they said, about $12,000 a year. I was sitting next to a pastor actually one time, and he had taken a train for 32 hours to meet with us. 32 hours. And believe me, it's not the kind of trains that you're thinking about. They're open air kinds of trains. 32 hours. And we were sitting in a restaurant, and I asked him, just trying to make conversation, I said, have you ever been to this restaurant before? And he said, oh, no. It would cost me probably 4 days' wages. Now, I know as a microbiologist what I make per day. You know what you make per day. Multiply that times 4 and see if you would ever go to a place and have a meal for you alone that would cost that much money. I cannot envision that I would do that. Now, another thing that we have talked about is that these people are, next slide, they're so impoverished both physically and spiritually. Hindu people believe there is one supreme God, but there are many millions, I have looked at some figures, 330 million lesser gods that they try and pray to and appease and that type of things, okay? Nazarenes are making a difference here because of the World Evangelism Fund. Next slide. You can see here what we are up against. okay? You can see in the very last picture there, they have, I see this in Sri Lanka and in India, they have places along the side of the road where you can stop. And what it reminded me of, you know, when you go to like county fairs and there's like a fortune teller thing, you put a quarter in and this talking heads, you know, shoots out something for you or whatever. That's kind of what it reminded me of. But this very last one, see, is a god, and they will go and take their prayer requests and tuck them in and then leave an offering. All along the sides of the road and everything. They are trying so hard to appease the gods to help them make their life any better. And it's just very sad when you look around at all of these people that are enchained to these beliefs. And we have the Supreme God that can set them free. And that's what your World Evangelism Fund can do. Also in India, the Nazarene Compassionate Ministries has developed highly effective ways to lift people out of their poverty and open up practical ways so that these people can stand on their own feet. The answer is communicated through self-help groups. In these groups, the 12 to 20 women meet weekly. They learn and are mentored in how to save money, how to develop and run businesses, how to keep business records, and use proper business ethics as well. One center can help 150 families a year. The cost for that for the year, for one family, $50 to make a change in these people's lives. $50 through Compassionate Ministries. Now, come with me to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is known, if you look at a world map, Sri Lanka is known as the teardrop of India because it's right below India. Beautiful country. Let me show you the difference you're making in the lives of these little boys and girls through the child development centers. We went to many of these child development centers while we were in India and Sri Lanka. Why are they having such a major impact? Because parents know that the way out of poverty for their children is education. And these child development centers are unapologetically Christian and Nazarene. Unapologetically. And they know ahead of time, when they sign their children up, they will be taught scriptures, but they're so desperate for their children to get out of poverty that they're willing to do that. And what has happened is now children are coming to Christ and families are coming to Christ because of the child development centers. And that is because you give to Compassionate Ministries through your faith promise. Here are some scenes from Sri Lanka. If you look, the very first one there, those are two of our teachers that are in the Child Development Center. The one in the center is the where they have a Child Development Center, but it's also a district center where they have a medical clinic where people can come in and get low-cost medical care. The next one is a Child Development Center that this couple, the woman in the pink and blue and her husband off to the right-hand side there, have worked for 15 years to get started. 15 years, and we were there to see the grand opening, where they are making a difference in these children's lives that can have such an impact on them. Next slide. How many of you guys like to drink tea? Anybody? I had a huge Earl Grey this morning for breakfast. I don't know if you know this, but here's a tidbit of perhaps you don't know. Because of your giving, we have a Nazarene tea plantation. Did you know that? In Sri Lanka. Mm-hmm. We do. How does that help? Well, number one, it helps the local economy because what we do is hire local people and give them the opportunity to then have wages and a salary to support their families. And this is up on a mountain, beautiful country, a beautiful facility. This was where we stayed for part of the time that we were in Sri Lanka. The little tuk-tuk on the bottom here, that's how we came and went and everything. Woo, lots of prayers went up as we went through those little hairpin turns that were very tiny going around those corners. They have to beep, 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 beep to let people know as you're going around the corner that somebody else is there. Yeah, lots of prayers. My mother, whoo, thank you. My mom's 95, prayed. Thank you, Mother. But this facility is wonderful. It hosts pastors' training sessions. It hosts compassionate ministries. It's a wonderful facility, beautiful, high up in the mountain overlooking your tea plantation. Next slide. You can see here where it says NCM, Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, Lanka. That's in Sri Lanka. And here are just a couple more pictures of the Compassionate Ministry Center where they can hold classes, and they have dormitories that people can stay in as well. We are also there for Compassionate Ministries disaster response. You know, we hear about all types of hurricanes, tsunamis, that type of thing, you know, and so we're there for that as well. Another fact under Did You Know, we have a sewing center right down the road from the center I was just telling you about, that we teach these ladies how to sew, and then they can help support their families. Did you know that we had a sewing center? We do. Mm-hmm. And you can see the little baby clothes and things that they were making. They also had made a little monkey backpack that I bought and used as a prize at one of our district conventions. All types of things are going on around the world that you guys need to know about because you're part of it. When you give to your faith promise, you are a part of this. All right? And so I am pleased to let you know that. Let me tell you a little story about how God was at work. We were at a showing of the Jesus film, and the screen was set up outdoors next to a Hindu temple. Now, they wanted us to kind of arrive subtly. That was kind of hard to do when you have like 35 white faces that are showing up. Yeah, we kind of, plus we were like in Range Rovers, okay, so it wasn't really subtle. But we finally got settled, and as the film was starting to run, it started to rain. Oh my word. You hear these stories all the time about how something happened to the projector and, you know, the electricity went out, and that's a fact of life around the world. Okay, well, it started to rain. Oh my goodness, our team just started praying, oh God, please stop this rain. Please stop the rain. Later, one of the team members told us that God had told her to stop praying about that because he had a better plan. Well, of course, we weren't communicating with each other, you know, so we didn't know that, so we had continued to pray. What happened was, it was not until later that they told us that it had not rained there for 3 months. And they had prayed to their Hindu gods for rain, but it was when we started to show the Jesus film that God sent rain, both physically and spiritually, to them with that. And you do that through your faith promise. When the film was over, they had asked the team if we would come down to the front and be ready to pray. And so we had an interpreter there with us, and a man brought his little boy over there to me, and he said he wanted me to pray for his schooling. And I thought, well, that's okay. I'm a professor. I can certainly pray about education. No sweat. So I prayed for the little boy. And then they brought another man over to me and wanted me to lay hands on his abdomen because he was having some illness there. And I thought, okay, well, I'm a medical professional. I can do this. All of a sudden, it was one of those times where I did not have to form the words. God just sent the words out through me. It's such an experience. I had someone ask me, well, were you praying in tongues? I said, well, I was to them because I was praying in English. Okay? So to them, it was like tongues, I'm sure. But it was one of those things where you just did not have to think about forming the words. God just prayed through me. Amazing. And so I want you to know, well, why did God bring those two people to me? I don't know exactly why, but I do know that God uses our abilities and our interests to help him build his kingdom. And so if nothing more, it impressed on me. They brought me an educational need and a physical need. And I felt that I could pray for both of those. And because you give to Faith Promise, we are able to be there representing Christ who died for them and changing their lives. Now, go with me to Campinas, Sao Paulo, Brazil. I've had the privilege of representing you on the very first district work and witness trip where they took the district presidents. The Brazilians are very warm and loving people. I had the pleasure of meeting Daisy Macedo. Now, she wanted to practice her English. We were sitting in the chapel waiting for devotions, and she sat down next to me, and we started to talk. And she wanted to practice her English, so we talked, And I have been able to go back for 3 other times, and every time we make an effort to get together. And she now is tutoring in English to people that want to learn English. Another did you know fact. Did you know that there's a school in Campinas that bears the name of Jamie Kratz? Jamie Kratz was a missionary son of Eldon and Kay Kratz, and he died at a young age. And the Jamie Kratz Educational Institute was founded in 1991. It's part of the Nazarene Educational Association of Campinas. It offers early childhood education, kindergarten, and also primary school and secondary school. And it has about 900 students there. They too love to practice their English, and except for, really standing out in the pink there, a lot of them were taller than I was almost when we got up to the high school. Beautiful children, beautiful. We also have a beautiful seminary that you notice on the bottom. This is where the very first classes of the Brazil Nazarene University are held. And I had the pleasure of being there when we planted a tree overlooking the Campinas. And the guy that is helping us build that said, you look out and you see a mosque with the crescent moon and the star. And he said, our cross is going to be higher than that is. When they bought this property, we had no idea. It is now a main thoroughfare through Brazil. And that's where your Brazil Nazarene University is going to be, to train new pastors and worship leaders and people to go out in all areas of business so that they can represent Christ and the Nazarene Church. Your Faith Promise helps through World Evangelism because World Evangelism supports our schools' Nazarene higher education. You may have heard the names of Bob and Frances Collins. They were missionaries to Brazil. Here on the seminary grounds, Frances explained to us the events of the day that Bob was shot by intruders. It is one of your missionary books this year called Miracle. And so if you read that book, you will read the story of Bob and Frances. As the details unfolded, she showed us the exact spot where he was shot, and as she was inside the house, and he was shot outside. As the details unfolded, for example, when Bob was rushed to the hospital, there was a surgeon that had just happened to be in Campinas, I think, for a seminar education thing, and he was available to do the surgery that Bob required to save his life. Why is this important? Bob and Frances served in Brazil for 34 years, impacting thousands of people's lives. If the medical plan had not been there and Bob had died, how many people would not have been impacted? But because you give and you support the medical plan, we were able to help Bob and get the surgeon and the aftercare that he needed so that he could continue to serve down in Brazil where he loved. Next one. We're just going to play a snippet here. because the very tiny church, this was Campinas Central. Campinas Central is one of the, if not the largest church in the whole denomination. It is probably 10,000 or more members there. It started in Campinas as a very tiny church built with alabaster funds. And you support alabaster. The pastor that is there, Dr. Aguiar Valvasora, he was saved as a teenager at the original church, and now he is the pastor and has been for more than 25 years of Campinas Central. Campinas Central has started at least 40 daughter churches. And it all started out of alabaster, because we gave to alabaster. Now, let's go to Africa. In Africa, 4,383 people a day contract AIDS, HIV. There are between 10 and 15 million AIDS orphans in Africa. It is estimated that every 15 seconds a child loses a parent to AIDS in Africa. Here you see our General Superintendent, Dr. Jerry Porter, and his wife, Tony, are praying with a 15-year-old that has HIV. You can also see where you are making an impact. The sign there, you can see where it says USAID, and then the arrow, NCMI, that's Nazarene Compassionate Ministries International. And so we are making a difference. As an educator, I have to give an HIV lecture to my class every semester. There are still many frightening myths and beliefs in the minds of the people with regard to HIV and AIDS. One of them, and to the Western mind, it just sounds so ludicrous, but one of them is that if you sleep with a virgin, it will cure your HIV. The unfortunate thing is that this has often led to raping very young girls trying to cure their HIV. The most effective tool that we have in the fight against AIDS is training. Training young people, men, women, pastors, community leaders, training them in the Christian values and responsible behavior. Training to remove the stigma, and training for those who care for the infected and the affected. They have an international AIDS conference every year, and one year they presented a caregiver's packet and a plan on how to do this. It was written for the 12-year-old who was taking care of their dying parents. What happens is, when the parents are gone, there is now like a whole generation that is being taken out of Africa, and it is the people that are the wage earners. So now we have very young people and older people. And many times, both parents are gone, and that the children don't know what to do, and so the oldest child has to now take care of the little ones. And so they do whatever they can. I heard a story where one of them, they had just lost their second parent, and there were 4 little ones, and they didn't know what to do, so they just followed the pastor home, and the pastor took them in. Now, I don't know about you, but it would be a stretch for me to take in 4 children. And I know they don't live in a home like I do. But they are embracing these orphans and trying to help them. In the next year, Nazarene Compassionate Ministry plans to launch further workshops and empower key congregations and local leaders to train others to have a tangible effect. What we need to do is have this impact in the fight against and the prevention of this crippling, family-destroying, and often deadly pandemic. You are literally saving lives, physical lives as well as spiritual lives, with your support of Compassionate Ministries in Africa through Faith Promise. You've made a difference in Africa because of your faithful giving, so the district could send work and witness teams to African Nazarene University. You're making an impact in the lives of boys and girls And men and women, you can see the bottom left here, the North Florida team that went to African Nazarene University. And on the bottom right, you can see the holiness conventions that they have. They have all of these holiness summits, maybe 2 a month for people. And these people are hungry for holiness. And we have that to offer them as Nazarenes because we are a holiness denomination. And so that's something that we can offer them. Did you know that 1 out of every 4 Nazarenes now lives in Africa? It is growing expansively. When I was there, Howie Shute, the missionary, told me, well, we were at one of these holiness conventions and we heard noise and everything over on the side, and we wondered about it. And I talked to him later at lunch, and he said, yes, it was a demon-possessed girl, and they took her out and prayed with her. He also told me, you know, it's easy to make God your everything when you have nothing. Very true. But what is the flip of that? We're going to Sweden in 2 weeks. The flip of that is it's very hard to make God anything when you have everything. When we go to Sweden, we would covet your prayers because the way that they're trying to get into Sweden is through the coffee shop ministries, because you have to engage them in friendship first before being overtly, you know, religious or anything to them. And they just have no, they told us they're beautiful 500-year-old stone cathedrals, and they're empty because the people just feel like they have no need for God. And so we would covet your prayers. Because of your support of the Jesus film and faithfully paying your district budget, North Florida was able to take the equipment into the lovely city of Barcelona. Here you can see at the bottom our pastors of the Barcelona church, Nacho and Lindsay Pasado. He is the son of missionaries Daniel and Marguerite Pasado. So he is a second generation Nazarene missionary because he's not from Barcelona. You've just seen a minuscule picture of what the Nazarene Church is accomplishing through the world. We now have come full circle, and so we're now back at Tallahassee First. And so I would ask you, what is God calling you to do? In Colossians 1:28, we read, realizing the impending doom of the unsaved, we must catch the vision and literally see the lost who are dying without the Savior. Let us renew our commitment to warn every person and to tell everyone in all wisdom. There are 107 souls that die every minute. During this time that I have been speaking to you, if you will pull that up, Andrea. And the number there is?
3,700.
3,500 people have died while I have been speaking to you. 3,500 people gone. Their eternal souls are gone. You can have an impact as to where these people will spend eternity. In Samuel 15:22, we read, but Samuel replied, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice. And so what I'm asking you is, Faith Promise, it really is building God's kingdom through your obedience to Him.
So until then, I'm gonna try to brave the dark and let my little light shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it
Stand with me.
Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for what the message has been that has been brought to us by Susan. I pray that you will bless each one of us, be with us as we leave this place, that our light will shine for you. In Jesus' name, amen. You're dismissed.